Welcome to episode 667 of the Entertainment 2.0 podcast, brought to you by thedigitalmediazone.com. I'm Josh Pollard.
And I'm Richard Gunther, and this is the show that puts you in control of your favorite movies, music, shows, and games. Because it's good to be in control of something, right?
Yes. So tonight we've got, I think I keep using the word fun, but it is a fun show tonight. We've got some listener feedback, which is always a joy for us, at least.
Yep.
We've got some news out of Netflix, and maybe that's not so fun news, but it's news out of Netflix. And then two stories from Nintendo. Two. And one of them I absolutely correctly put in the audio segment, not in the gaming segment. So if you haven't heard about that news yet, you'll definitely want to stick around to hear about it because it's pretty cool. But we'll start with some listener feedback. These were emailed to us at entertainment20@thedigitalmediazone.com.
All right. Well, our first item of feedback is from Justin from across the pond, I believe, based on the way he spells. And Justin had some feedback for both of our last two episodes. He said, just some quick feedback from the past couple episodes. I'm summarizing this a bit. So regarding speaker handoff, which we talked about in 665, he says Apple does use ultra wideband specifically in its AirTags. So there's no reason why it should not be able to implement something similar to Google, meaning like what Google's doing with speaker handoff. And utilizing ultra wideband should, as was said, allow for distance tracking. So it should be able to automatically, his word, not mine, transfer once within, let's say, 3 meters of the speaker. Setting priorities and overrides, well, that's something else, however. And that's kind of along the lines of what we were talking about, Josh. I think this idea, this world where we could get speakers to follow us is totally possible. The trick is going to be getting the conditions for that handoff right, even if the technology supports it.
Yeah. It's not going to be an easy problem to solve, but it definitely seems doable with current technology. This is not future tech.
Yeah. So that's cool. Glad to hear that I was right in what I thought in how ultra wideband stuff worked. So that's cool. All right. And the next topic is regarding color e-ink. He says a company called Onyx has had books, that's spelled Boox, out for a while, and we'll put a link to that in our show notes. He says it runs Android, but like most Android devices, it's not updated regularly, so it's an older version. He says, I've been considering one of these myself, but I've not bitten the bullet yet. I still have an early Paperwhite Kindle. And he says that he goes on and describes how his Kindle is really only a backup device because he downloads all of his books now as EPUB and PDF to avoid all of the Amazon tracking. And he does the same sort of thing even with audiobooks to avoid, and this is a direct quote, all the corporate shenanigans and tracking. Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough.
I've seen devices like this before, and I totally forgot to mention them last week when we talked about this. I do like the idea of an Android tablet with an e-ink screen because for me, I don't buy, I'm probably not going to buy that many ebooks. I get most of my ebooks and audiobooks from the library through the Libby app. And there are ways to do this, to use Libby and get it on your Kindle and all of that.
It's a hassle.
So having an e-ink Android tablet to do this would be potentially nicer. But every time I've read about these, they're like, well, it's an old version of Android, so it might not get updated, or the performance of this device is miserable. So Yeah, I wonder if this one that he references is any good, but he does reference, like you said, that it's an older version of Android, so it could have issues.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he also has some thoughts on gaming headsets. I think this is probably more for you, Josh.
Probably.
But he said it may be outside the budget, but if you ever get a chance to try the Master and Dynamic units, give them a shot. To this day, my favorite and most comfortable headset is my original MH40, which they've now made wireless. And now I use the MW75. These are very much luxury purchases and outside what most sane people would pay for a headset.
Yeah, I've seen these a little bit. Honestly, with some of these devices, like I intentionally don't look very closely at them because I would want to be like, I don't know, maybe I can justify $500 for a gaming headset. I use it a lot. But
can you though?
But I don't know that I can. Like a lot of times my gaming headsets just get left on the couch and there are children running around in my house and like I would have to take far better care of it. And I'm probably not going to like dual purpose it, right? Like I'm probably not going to be like, well, it's $500, but it's also like the best pair of on-ear headphones that I have. So I will use them in other places. Like I'm probably not going to do that all that much. And so how about I just buy a cheaper headset? But I appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I didn't even really consider that there might be a high-end luxury category for gaming headsets, but that isn't just all about, like amping up the tech, right? That's just making something a real nice luxury product, but cool to hear that there is. All right. He also had some thoughts on his scary preferences, thinking back to our spooky episode 666. On the movie round, he says he also likes The Ring, but the original Japanese version, he says it was way better. Josh, I didn't even know there was an original Japanese version. Did you?
I did, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to. I don't need to be that scared again.
The one that we have already scared the crap out of me. That's enough, right? Yeah. But no, it's good. That's cool. That's really good to know. And he says he gives honorable mentions to Event Horizon and Final Destination. Now, I've seen Event Horizon, and I admit that was creepy as heck. And I knew it was going to be going in, and I still wanted to see it because it was a twist on the horror film. It was a space-oriented horror film.
Right. And maybe the first good one since Alien.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought of Event Horizon when we were doing all of the planning, but it was one of those moments where I was just like mowing the lawn or something like that and couldn't easily get to my notes and write it down. Yes, Event Horizon is definitely on my list for some of my favorite scary movies. It was so good.
So for sure. Good. Now, on the book scene, he says he likes stuff from author R.L. Stine. As a child and a teenager, that was his preference. But nowadays, he likes Greg Beck's Alex Hunter series. He says it's not really horror, but it is a little creepy. I don't know either of these authors. Do you?
R.L. Stine is the one that I mentioned in terms of kids' books.
Yeah, well, you can tell how much I'm paying attention.
Well, he is the author of Goosebumps. Maybe I didn't mention him by name, but I think I referenced Goosebumps books.
Absolutely. Yeah. I do remember that. Okay. And then finally, in games, he says he loved the Dead Space trilogy.
Right, which it's sort of like Event Horizon. Like, I don't think it's the same sort of scariness, but it's scary in space. And yeah, I've heard these games are terrifying, which is why I've only heard that about them. I have not played any of them. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so good recommendation.
Yeah, and thanks for all the feedback, Justin. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, we also got some feedback from John, and he said he also really enjoyed the spooky podcast. He said, I'm not a fan of scary stuff. Watching The Shining and Alien is about it. I did like both the Munsters and the Addams Family. And he said that Fred Gwynn lived nearby when he moved out this way, wherever that is. And that Fred Gwynn is apparently buried in an unmarked grave in a local cemetery.
That's wild.
That is wild. And like, is it unmarked because they don't want people messing with actors' graves? And like, what do you think the reason is behind that?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's funny because I think part of it might be, there's some discussion or some understanding that he didn't really enjoy the fame that he had. And so, the kind of being more anonymous was probably more aligned with where he really wanted to be in and after life.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Very cool though.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, let's get into our news for this week. And we're going to start with some news out of Netflix. This is the kind of bad news story of the week. So Netflix a few years ago started working on interactive titles. And then after they got a couple of them, they even went so far, like there was a quote out there where they were like, we are doubling down on interactive content inside of Netflix. Well, they're done doubling down. In fact, they're doing whatever the reverse of doubling down is, doubling up. I don't know, but they're getting rid of almost all of the interactive shows on Netflix. And you might be wondering, like, what is Josh even talking about? Interactive
right
on Netflix?
Right, exactly.
Which is maybe the problem. That might be the problem. But Netflix has produced over 20 shows that allow you to interact with the show in various ways. I think probably the most famous one was the special episode of Black Mirror called Bandersnatch. Richard, you watched that one, right?
Nope.
No?
I did not. I haven't yet. So the one that I've seen is the episode of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt that they did.
Okay.
And that's my only exposure to this. So that's one that they're going to leave in place. They're going to leave the Black Mirror episode. They're going to leave the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt episode, and two Bear Grylls things that they did, Ranveer versus Wild and You versus Wild. I don't know.
No idea.
Haven't seen either of those. I mentioned that I did see the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt thing. I didn't like this experience, frankly. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was clunky. I know the whole choose your own adventure thing has been, I don't know, the holy grail for storytelling. I didn't think it worked. And so I'm not surprised by this. I think, frankly, I'm glad they're going to stop wasting my stockholder money. There's my disclaimer on creating content like this, because it didn't work. But that's just my opinion.
I seem to remember, and I could be misremembering, I suppose, that the Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode was really popular and the people really liked it.
That's awesome.
I have not watched it. It's always been on that list of like, maybe someday I'll remember to watch this, because I loved Choose Your Own Adventure books as those were like my favorite books. Those were like the only books that I finished when I was a kid.
Sure. Okay.
But I've watched a couple of episodes of Black Mirror and did not like it. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't really make time in my schedule to go and watch this, I suppose.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I don't know how I missed that in all of our conversations about Black Mirror.
Yeah, I think it's just a little too much. It's just a little bit too depressing. It's kind of how I felt, especially, I don't know why I watched all of Squid Game, but
oh,
yeah,
Yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah.
It's just it was a little too depressing and a little too over the top, and
yeah.
Nah.
Well, and and I know we've had this discussion. Black Mirror started strong with their first episode in the over the top category.
Yes, and maybe that calms down in later episodes, but I didn't stick around long enough to find out.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, like Richard said, they started with over 20 titles. There will still be 4 remaining, but that's it. The rest of them are going away, and they're not planning to produce any more. They were quoted as saying the technology served its purpose, but is now limiting as we focus on technological efforts in other areas.
So here's the thing that fascinates me with the going away thing. Why? They own them. They created them. Why are they going away? The technology to deliver those programs still has to exist on their platform so that they can serve these 4 titles.
Right.
What's the harm in keeping the other dozen and a half available just so that people who might have liked them could enjoy them? And the only explanation that I can come to is the same unfortunate and frustrating financial decision that we've heard for so many other companies is the potential write-down that they can take as a loss for declaring that they can't use these to generate revenue anymore.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm guessing something similar along those lines, and that is that I think it's probably licensing. Like some of these were like Puss in Boots and things like that, that they probably don't own all of the licensing to. But you're right. Like their reasoning that they said was essentially, we're not messing with this technology anymore. And to me, as a software engineer by trade, I think, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to necessarily support that tech ongoing for a long time. But if they're keeping any of these, then they are going to have to continue to support that tech.
Yeah. And that doesn't just mean keep these things running. It means that as my Apple TV and as your Google streaming device and any other television out there that has a Netflix app on it that supported this continues to evolve, they have to make a decision as to whether or not they're going to make whatever updates are necessary to keep these things working on those platforms.
Right. Exactly. So my guess would be maybe by this time next year, they're deciding no,
these are gone too.
This is just gone for good.
Yeah, maybe.
It was cool, but no. What would be fun is if they decided we're just going to make a canonical version of these, and we will release an episode of Black Mirror where they've just picked all of the options. And that's just the only way to watch it. You don't get to choose your own adventure.
Well, and if I remember from the Kimmy Schmidt episode that I watched, there was an option to just run it through the path. Like there are basically, there's basically 2 options where things fork. And so it would take, every left turn in one path if you wanted it to, or every right turn in the other path if you wanted it to. It's not like there's an infinite number or any sort of, like squared number of options out there.
Right. All right. Well, that's it for those interactive titles on Netflix. So let's move on to...
And for what it's worth, that's not bad news. I don't think this is bad news at all.
I don't know. Well, the one thing that we didn't tie into in that story is Netflix is still trying to do gaming. Like you can still play video games inside of the Netflix app on your mobile devices. And these choose your own adventure type shows and movies, that is tapping into an aspect of what makes video games so fun. You're in control. So I don't want to see this type of thing go away completely, but maybe there are better ways to do it. maybe.
Fair enough. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned at the top of the show, everybody wants to be in control.
Exactly. Well, Nintendo is going to allow you to be in control of listening to Nintendo music wherever you want to go. So, yes, this is Nintendo.
Oh, are we in the gaming section now?
No, we are not in the gaming section, Richard. We are 100% legit in the audio section of our news this week because Nintendo has released a streaming music app. And this, like, this isn't something you put on your Nintendo Switch or something. This is on your phone. It is on your iPhone. It is on your Android phone. This is just like if you had a Spotify app. The difference is what music is available in the service.
Okay.
And it's music from Nintendo games.
Okay.
And so, like, I mean, that's basically it. It's just a music app for Nintendo music. But there are some cool features to it. I think probably the coolest feature is, a lot of video game music, it's just a short section of music that's just looped and looped and looped until you finish the level, right? And so for a certain subset of the songs in the catalog within the Nintendo Music app, you can say, yeah, play this for 5 minutes, play this for 15 minutes, 30, 60 minutes, or just uninterrupted. Just loop this forever because I want some really good focus music while I'm writing code or whatever it is that you happen to be doing.
Or how to drive your parents crazy.
I don't know. It might be less annoying because it's just the music. It's just the melody. You don't have to listen to your kids' bloops and bleeps and blops while it's listening to the music, right? It's just music, right? I mean, if you put, Beethoven's Fifth and you looped it for a while, like, would it get super annoying?
Okay, but I mean, we're comparing that to things like Legend of Zelda. So, I immediately what comes to mind to me is, just 8-bit sound.
Right. And that's fair. I think that is what a lot of people would immediately think of. However, there's not a ton of that in the catalog right now. It is skewed very heavily towards far more recent music from games. One of the most popular things that people like to listen to is the music from the Wii Shop, but also the music from why did it just fall out of my head? Animal Crossing, like really popular music that people love listening to. That's a game that everybody played on Switch. That's not 8-bit music. And so it is right now a lot of the newer music. But that's also maybe one of the downsides to this. There actually isn't a lot of NES music, Super Nintendo type songs in the catalog yet.
So I was wondering, Super Mario Kart and stuff like that. Is any of that in there?
I don't know everything that's in there because I haven't tried the app because we haven't talked about how you get this. So the app is free, just like the Spotify app is free. But to use it, it does require a subscription, but not necessarily a new one. If you are a Switch Online subscriber, you just
it's a gaming story.
It's not, because it's Switch Online is dirt cheap. Like, if you only care about the music service for this, Switch Online, a 1-year subscription for one person is $20.
All right. Okay.
For 1 year. And
right.
I think for the family subscription, it's $35. So yes, so you could look at it as the Switch Online subscription that I use for music also allows me to play my Nintendo games online and get cloud saves and stuff like that. So yes, of course there is a gaming aspect to this, but this is a music service app that we're talking about here. You just subscribe to it through Nintendo Switch Online.
That's pretty cool. I don't know that you mentioned this yet, but one of the things that I think is pretty cool about this is that it lets you download it to listen offline too, just like any good music app would.
Right.
It just so happens that it's these specific tracks.
Yeah, exactly. And Nintendo didn't like go way out of left field here and try to come up with some crazy new scheme for how to make a music streaming app. It looks a lot like Spotify and YouTube Music and everything else that you're really familiar with, including, they've got their own curated playlist and things like that. So go and check it out. Like if you're into game music at all, and especially if you already have a Switch Online subscription, definitely go and get this and check it out. It's available on iOS and Android right now. And the library, while it's not huge yet, they're continuing to add to it. And that doesn't cost you extra money. So definitely worth checking out. Okay, so Richard, how about we get into the actual gaming news?
Okay, sure. Now we call it gaming.
Yes, this is actual gaming news. Although far lighter on the news part of it. So Nintendo announced months ago that this is ridiculous. They announced that they will announce the follow-up to the Nintendo Switch sometime by the end of March 2025.
Okay, I wonder what that's going to be.
It's kind of weird to say that we will be announcing it in this time window, but that's how they did it. So whatever, I guess. Well, with Nintendo, man, you just never, ever really know what to expect. Kind of in terms of anything. Like, is it going to be a handheld? Will it not be? What will the controllers look like? Can I use old controllers? Like, there's so many things that are entirely up in the air because Nintendo, they just do things their own way, man. But they did announce this week a really, really important detail. They said that the follow-up, the successor to the Switch, and of course they're not saying Nintendo Switch 2 or anything like that. They just said the successor to Nintendo Switch will support backwards compatibility for games. So, like, they didn't get any more specific than that. It's a little bit vague. It doesn't mean, like, they don't clarify to say it'll have a cartridge slot so that games that you bought on cartridge will work in this thing. They don't say if it's digital only. They don't say any of that. But they say that your Switch games will work on whatever the follow-up is to the Switch. And that's important. Now, the super cynical people out there could say, well, we sort of already have backwards compatibility on the Switch. They just call it the Virtual Console, which requires a subscription, and it allows you to play a limited catalog of older games. I don't think that's what they're talking about here. I do think that they're saying, if you bought Animal Crossing, you're going to be able to play it on whatever this follow-up device is. But there are still questions about, like, but what if I only bought it physically on a cartridge? Don't know. Really don't know. And the way that Nintendo handled things like, the Switch is a console that kind of, like, it really begs to just have multiples of them in your house, right? Like, because they're not nearly as expensive as an Xbox. And so, like, maybe you as the parent have a Switch and you bought a Switch Lite for your kids or something like that. But sharing games between the Switch is a giant pain. Like, really, your only good option is to buy them physically on the Switch, because if you buy them digitally, you can only play them on one console. And you have to, like, unregister from one console to play it on another. So, like, Nintendo doesn't have a great track record.
But that's an artificial constraint, right?
It is. It's absolutely an artificial constraint, and one that doesn't make any sense because it has accounts. Like, it's just like Xbox. If I show up at your house and log into your Xbox with my account, I can download all of the digital games that I've purchased, and it just works. And then when I go home, I can still keep playing mine. And I don't have to do any craziness around uninstalling and reinstalling and all this craziness that Nintendo makes you do.
Right. You have to wonder why they put everybody through that. I mean, I wonder if they, with anything that they licensed, they had tighter constraints with license holders that they had to do that. I don't know.
Maybe, but
I mean, so much of their content is original, though. So why? Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that this will work in a way that benefits the consumer, but we don't really know, and we won't really know until they actually officially announce what the follow-up to the Switch will be, which is sometime by the end of March. So we've got 6 months.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't really follow games that much. I don't really care about gaming that much, but I follow the space, and I have to hand it to Nintendo for their, I don't know what the right word is, for their, if it's ingenuity or just what it is in the products that they put out. But they've done some seriously innovative stuff over the years. If you think about the Game Boys, the multiple iterations of Game Boys, the use of SD cards as a cartridge at some point in time, I think, in addition to, doing the whole game cartridge when they were doing that, and the Wii and the, the whole motion thing that they had with the Wii, and then the Switch. The Wii U is probably their biggest failure, and one of their few real failures with all the different stuff that they've done. So I would look at this as like, cool. They're going to come out with a new thing and I can still use my old games. That's awesome.
It is awesome, assuming that they do it well.
Right.
Because if they release a Switch 2 or what, because I'm just sick of saying Switch successor. if the Switch 2 is a digital only device that doesn't have a cartridge slot, well, they just spent the last 8 years, I think the Switch has been out, basically training people, go and buy all of these games physically. And yeah, none of them are actually going to work on the Switch 2 because there isn't a physical slot. But if you manage to purchase it digitally, then it'll work. Like, that's going to really anger some people. So they've got to do this well.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm going to be cautiously optimistic that they will do this mostly well.
I am optimistic.
Okay.
But I've been that before this week. Moving on.
Let's move on. We're going to do something a little bit different to kind of wrap up the news section. And it's now November. I can't really believe or understand how it's already November, but it is. And that means that Black Friday is at the end of the month, which actually just means that Black Friday sales have already started because it's not really about Black Friday anymore. And there are some really good deals right now that we want to make sure that you all know about, because I even bought one of these. So if you're in the market for any of these, you don't need to wait for Black Friday, and we wanted to share them with you. So the first up is one of our favorite TV lines, at least. LG has their 65-inch C4 OLED.
Oh, C4. I need to buy a new one already.
Right. For a pretty massive discount over at Amazon. These things, the MSRP is $2,700. You can probably get it cheaper than that typically, but this is a pretty big discount. You can grab it on Amazon right now for $1,500. And is the C4 the top of the line? No, the G series is. But this is still like everything that you're looking for. It is the fantastic display. It is brighter than the OLEDs that Richard and I have. It has the 120 hertz refresh rate if you want to hook your Xbox Series X or PS5 to it and get high refresh gaming. Like, it's got basically everything you're looking for, and it's $1,500. That's amazing. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes, of course. Next up, Google Pixel Buds Pro 2. These are some of the many headphones that I've been considering getting, and they've been right near the top of the list. But, they only came out in September, so actually maybe August, so they haven't really been on sale yet. Well, until now. Right now, you can get the Google Pixel Buds Pro 2 for $60 off, bringing them down to $169. This is what I just purchased tonight. And I'm really hoping that I can get them before I travel next week, because I'm really hoping that the active noise cancellation is really good. This is not on Amazon. It's on wellbots.com, and it does use a coupon code. So again, all of the information in the show notes there. Sticking with headphones, another pair that I'd considered if you're looking for what's always been considered one of, if not the best active noise canceling headphones in terms of, the over-the-ear can style headphones. It's the Bose Quiet Comfort headphones. These things are typically $350. You can get them on Amazon right now, probably delivered to you later today as you're listening to this, for $199. That's also an amazing deal. If you want speakers instead of headphones, and you're in that Google/Nest ecosystem, Best Buy has a pretty cool offer. This is not a brand new product by any stretch of the imagination, but the Nest Audio speakers, they are $99. Best Buy has them buy one, get one. That's pretty awesome. And they've been on sale before, but they've never been on sale for $50 a speaker. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is an amazing price. And if you think about this, the Nest Audio, so for the audio products that they sell that are just audio, this is really the best audio product that Google has. They used to have that big $500 speaker that nobody bought, so they stopped selling that. But the Nest Audio device is a really good sounding audio device, and it's a Google Assistant speaker as well. So it operates as an assistant for you around your home. You can pair them, and so you buy two for $99 and you have a stereo pair in a room. That's amazing. That's what I'm paying for one HomePod Mini.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't have anywhere near as good audio.
No. Right. If you're not super familiar with the Nest Audio speaker, and you're like, I can't see this because this is a podcast, guys. Well, one, you could be watching the video podcast, but we're not showing it on YouTube either. It looks like the it looks like the Sonos one. It's a little bit taller. It looks like a bookshelf speaker, right? But it's not like a tiny little crock pot thing, or like an Echo Dot or something crazy like that.
No, it looks more like if you took a club sandwich, stood it on end, and wrapped it in carbon fiber or something. That's what it looks like.
A club sandwich wrapped in carbon fiber.
I mean, that's the size of it, right?
Is it really that small?
It's not very big.
Okay.
It's not, again, on its end. It's standing up.
Yeah. Okay. I wonder if I can convince Jen to let me buy these two after buying those headphones.
What? You have Google JBL speakers.
Yes, but not everywhere. I've kind of wanted some good speakers for the family room for a long time. And
okay.
This would be kind of nice in the family room. So we'll see. And then lastly, a subscription service here. If you've never subscribed to Audible and you're like, man, Josh and Richard are always talking about audiobooks. Well, Audible is the easiest way. Like bar none, it's the easiest way to get into audiobooks because it's just an app on your phone. You give Amazon some money and you get audiobooks. It's super easy to use. But it's regularly like $15 a month for an Audible subscription. Right now, if you're a new subscriber, you can get your first 3 months for only $3. So $1 a month, not $9, $3 total for the first 3 months of your subscription. And so that's basically 3 books for a grand total of $3. So that's a pretty sweet deal also. And this one, you do actually have until the end of the year to sign up for this deal.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So we will, of course, have links to all of this stuff in the show notes. Some of these things will be affiliate links. As a reminder, affiliate links, they give us a little bit of money. It doesn't cost you any extra. And it really is the best way that you can financially support this show. So even if you don't necessarily want these devices, click in an Amazon link on our site. And then if you buy something afterward, helps us out.
Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting thing, right? And a shout out to those of you who are doing this already, because we know that some of you are, and thank you. If you just bookmark one of our affiliate links and then use that as your way to end up getting to Amazon, and then you just do your shopping and do the normal stuff that you would get when you're at Amazon, that also helps us too. And thank you if you're doing that. And if you're not, think about it.
Think about it. It helps us, and it doesn't cost you any extra money at all. It doesn't get much easier than that. So we appreciate that. Anybody who's already doing it, and for anybody who starts doing it. All right. Well, Richard, let's get into what's going on in our entertainment centers.
Yeah, and there's a little bit more than before, because it's been, because of our odd recording schedule, 11 days since we last talked about what's going on in our entertainment centers. But I have been traveling, and some software updates have come out on hardware that I own. In fact, oddly enough, my car just had a software update today. That was weird. Couldn't drive it for the 20 minutes that the update was coming down. But also, my AirPods received an update that allows me to use them as hearing aids. Official FDA approved hearing aids. And so for the last week, I have been doing that while I've been in conversations, wandering around, while I've been watching television, while I've just been sitting around at home and having conversations. And so far, I find them better and more useful and less annoying than are you sitting down for this? $8,000 hearing aids I was testing for a while from my audiologist that I chose not to purchase.
I had no idea that hearing aids could cost that much.
Right? And so here's my beef. The media is covering how you can use your AirPods as hearing aids now, and that's really a great thing, but they do cost $250, and hearing aids can cost as much as $1,000. Are you kidding me? Because I don't know what hearing aids you're looking at, but I know for a fact that hearing aids can cost way more than $1,000. So if you're someone like me who perhaps as you're aging, or perhaps through other events or means, you are experiencing hearing loss to some degree, check this out, because it's surprisingly good. I am very impressed with these so far. Now, I have joked previously about what it's going to look like if I walk around even more time during my day with cigarettes hanging out of my ears, but we kind of all got used to that, and I think it's going to become even more common, and I am convinced that we are going to see Apple come out with some sort of design that's much more aligned with what Google and others are doing, where you're really just looking at something that looks more like an in-ear monitor than these sticks that hang out of your ears. And frankly, that gives you more space for a battery and other audio technology in there.
Right. So that was my other question, is what's the battery life when you're using them as hearing aids?
It's not noticeably worse than it would be if I were using them to just listen to content from some device. So it's about 6 hours. And remember, these are designed to recharge in your battery containing box, which I carry around in my watch pocket, because what else do you use a watch pocket for anymore? And so that allows you to recharge them very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy enough to do just in some off time, or maybe one at a time or something like that. So I haven't found the 6-hour thing to be a problem at all, because it's very rare that I need to be 6 hours on.
Right. And so is it a pain to like switch between like hearing aid mode versus I want to listen to a podcast mode?
Nope. It's automatic. It just happens. And you can decide whether you still want to be able to hear everything around you as you're listening to a podcast, or whether you want to go into more of a secluded or even noise blocking mode. But
the opposite of hearing aids.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's just seamless. They have done such a good job with this. I am thoroughly impressed. And if anybody else has tried this, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Maybe I just have my fanboy hat on right now in this first week or two, but so far I'm really impressed. Yeah. So
Shark Dressed Penguin in the chat says AirPods Pro 2 are $189 at Best Buy right now.
There you go. That's what you need for this service.
Do will these work with Android?
Yeah, they're just Bluetooth. But now,
will the hearing aid work?
No. So you have to have an iPhone to be able to set up the hearing aid stuff.
That's just rude. Okay.
I mean,
and I thought being a green bubble was bad.
That's less bad now that we have a little bit more compatibility these days. All right, let's move on. So, what have I been watching in my entertainment center? Jessica Jones season 2. I got back to that, and I'm really enjoying watching through that. What We Do in the Shadows season 6. I mentioned this before. I love this show. I'm so glad that the new season is on. We're enjoying that. I am up to date on Abbott Elementary. Star Trek Lower Decks started. This is the last season, as far as I'm aware. Season 5, the premiere was out, and I watched that. I think the first 2 episodes were out, and I watched them on the flight as I went on my vacation. A lot of fun there. The season premiere of Ghosts, we watched that just about a week ago. There's probably another episode out already that I haven't seen yet. We did finally start, as I had mentioned, Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, season 2. I fell asleep the first time I watched episode 1. It's because I was tired. I watched it again on the flight and I was fine and I was able to focus. And so now we're watching more episodes of that and I'm enjoying it. You and I think, talked about Agatha All Along in a recent episode. And I mentioned that I felt like I was going to need to, get a refresher on what happened prior. So I watched the last episode of WandaVision, reminding myself how good WandaVision was. And now I want to rewatch WandaVision. But I watched the first 2 episodes of Agatha All Along so far, and I'm enjoying it. But I, even having watched WandaVision, feel like, all right, I never read the comics with this character. I don't know what her background is. I'm lost. I'm just going with it, and I'm hoping they'll tell me more.
Yeah.
But I am lost right now.
Yeah. The thing that you're probably the most lost about is like the chick who shows up to fight her in her house.
Yeah,
that gets
and the
explained
kid
later. And the kid is like the biggest part of the whole story. That definitely gets explained.
Okay.
Don't worry.
All right, good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm enjoying it, so I'll continue watching it. Also, I mentioned that this is a tradition, and so we did indeed watch Hocus Pocus for Halloween this year and enjoyed that, as we always do. And then I wanted to watch the latest. I don't know if you could call this a version, but the recent movie called The Fall Guy, based on the concept of the Fall Guy from the TV series with Lee Majors. And it was fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Everyone went to bed, but I thoroughly enjoyed it and thought it was fun. And I would recommend it if you like that kind of stuff. Also, in case you didn't notice, there was like a big event that went by this past week with like a big fight between blue and red, and it didn't go in the blue direction that I was really hoping. I know you're all thinking the same thing I was. Penn State lost this weekend. And I just was not expecting that.
That's not true at all. If you were expecting Penn State to win that game, then you don't actually pay attention to their rivalry with Ohio State.
Well, I kind of do, but admittedly, this is the only game that I've watched in its entirety. But yeah, we did watch this because it's such a big rivalry and because Penn State has a history of losing to Ohio State. But this was going to be the year. This was going to be the year. Oh, right. I thought the same thing with the major election that we had this week, too. That didn't happen, but I did enjoy watching the returns on YouTube TV, as I always do, with the 4UP YouTube TV view of the news. And Josh, man, I love that so much. I even got Edward used to it this time. That off or up, and I kept it off. I didn't click in. I just kept off or up because it was really interesting for me to watch how networks were calling the races. Like Fox in general was really aggressive in calling races earlier than any of the other news networks. Now they were following AP and the ABC, NBC, CBS networks. But as far as the news networks were concerned, they were calling stuff faster than the other news networks. And I was kind of fascinated by that, considering all of the flack that they got for calling Arizona early in the last election.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so it was a long night. I didn't get a lot of sleep. I went to bed at 1, giving up on knowing an answer before I went to bed. And so, yeah, there we are.
All right. Well, I'll start with games. Some more Diablo 4. It's so good. This Vessel of Hatred expansion. It's good. They've made so many improvements to the game since it was released last summer, I think it was. If you haven't played Diablo 4 like since it launched, it's worth checking out again because they've made a lot of quality of life improvements. Even if you don't buy the Vessel of Hatred expansion, but you should because it's good. Also, this tiny little indie game came out in the last 11 days that you may or may not have heard of. It's called Call of Duty. The latest one came out at the end of October. It's so good. I love the Black Ops games. This is Black Ops 6.
6, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. It's got Nuketown, my favorite map of all time. It's, super 90s themed because the campaign takes place during the Gulf War. Richard, you're never going to play this, of course, but
nope.
There is a level in the single player campaign that takes place at a Bill Clinton campaign rally, and like Bill Clinton is in the game. Yeah, it's crazy. That's really cool.
Okay.
So Call of Duty, it's great. It's back. It's better than ever. It's so good. TV, I finished Agatha All Along. I did really like this because it doesn't feel like a Marvel thing. Like it's just a good, fun witch story. It was really well done, I thought. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Also, really, really enjoying watching Lions football. They won again. Love to see that, especially when they're embarrassing the Green Bay Packers. I will watch that every single day of the week if I could. And then I also, of course, watched the election returns last night. I was not doing some crazy 4UP thing. Instead, like for whatever reason, I've kind of settled on ABC as like that's the one that I've watched the last few years, but I'll still like flip around. And Jen was interested in hearing from other places too. So we flipped around a little bit, but I stuck with ABC because they had. Did you end up watching ABC at all on your four
Not at all.
screens? Okay,
Not at all. No.
So now, obviously, Project 538 gets a lot of heat and stuff,
Yep.
but they had a tie-in with some data from Project 538 or whatever it's called, where they would zoom into the counties and show you, like, which is not new. Like you can see the returns as they're coming in for a county. But what was cool was they also had, here is how Biden did, here's how Hillary did, here's how Trump did that time, in those elections. And here's the projection for what we think they need to do in terms of percentage of this county's votes to be able to win the state in every single county. And so it was really cool because like they would go to Pennsylvania and they'd be like, wow, like Harris is outperforming Trump in these areas and stuff, and like in kind of big ways. But then when you looked at North Carolina and Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin, she was not outperforming him at all. And she wasn't even performing as well as she needed to be doing.
Right.
And so I went to bed early. By 10, I was like, this thing is over. She's not winning this election. Like, if these numbers are right, she's not winning this election. And I went to bed early. So I got more sleep than you because of ABC News.
I'm a little bit envious of you. I think the other networks are starting to do that. So I feel like CNN and MSNBC, both of their guys at the board are really, really good. The Fox guy at the board, I just don't think he knows the demographics as well. It's always the same guy. And I just feel like he doesn't know the demographics and frankly, the geography as well as the MSNBC and CNN guys. And they both do that math, but they do it in their heads on the fly. So while they're showing you, here's where Biden was, here's where Hillary was, here's where Trump was these last three elections, and that difference is what's so critical. They're literally writing it in with their finger because it's not up on the board yet. Like, how many years have they been using this technology and they're not showing you that all important delta yet?
Right.
And it's really cool to hear that ABC is using that because that is a key factor.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it way easier to understand and to be able to see it as they're talking, even if they're not specifically saying those things, like you can pull that data out for yourself.
Yeah.
And the guy at the board generally pretty good on ABC, although there was one moment when the 8 people I think they had at tables in the studio, which is way too many, was like, but how are things going in Nash County in North Carolina? And you can just see him panic, like, I don't know which one's Nash County. And he's like tapping, trying to find it.
Arguably, he should.
He probably should, yes.
I would argue that Kornacki and King on MSNBC and CNN would immediately know where it is.
But yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe Nash isn't as important of a county. Like, it's not the county that Charlotte's in or anything like that. But
right.
I don't, because I couldn't have told you where Nash County is, but I'm also not on national television doing this. So,
right.
Yeah. So that was an interesting way to watch all of that last night. And then a book I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I've been reading. I'd started a couple of books around the same time. The nonfiction book that I liked and finished, and I will for sure read again, is an older book called Extreme Productivity, Boost Your Results, Reduce Your Hours by Robert C. Posen. I didn't go back to look and see when this is written, but he mentions his BlackBerry a lot. So it's probably, it might actually be late 2000s because I think he does mention the Obama presidency at some point. So but it's not a brand new book. And it's just a lot of really good tips on how to organize your day plus thinking longer term and stuff like that. It was a good productivity book.
So if you just finished this, why are you going to read it again?
Because I'm not good at taking notes when I'm listening to books like this.
Okay.
And a lot of times, like I'm reading them at 1.75 speed or whatever, and
yeah.
So a lot of times, especially for shorter nonfiction books, I'm like, I'm just going to read most of it unless it's a clunker, and just to find out, like, is there good stuff here? And when I want to know this stuff again, I'm going to go back and read it when it's more timely.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for what's going on in my entertainment center, which means that's it for this show. So if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us all over the place. I'm on Twitter at Josh Pollard. So is the website at DigiMediaZone. Richard is at Richard Gunther on Mastodon. We're also doing the show live again. And that also means that we're going to release the video of this over on our YouTube channel. So go over there, like it, subscribe to the channel. And, we're typically doing the show Tuesdays or Wednesday nights around 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And, one last call out, head on over to the website, www.thedigitalmediazone.com, hit the show notes. You're always going to find links to the stories that we talked about, but you're also going to find the links to all of those awesome Black Friday deals that for some of them could actually help us out. So we appreciate you doing that for us. But that's going to do it for episode 667. He's Richard Gunther, and I'm Josh Pollard. Thanks for listening to Entertainment 2.0. Adios.
Goodbye.